What should leaders in the region do? What can the OAS, under your leadership, do? And what should the United States do?
Well, I think what's missing here, to be very frank, very blunt, I just said that some of the basic things were in place. I think, for example, that Latin America has improved a lot in the management of macroeconomic policy. That's a clear asset from the beginning of the 90s, in which so many crises took place and where we had inflations of 10,000%, et cetera, and from that emerged a certain capacity to manage the macroeconomics a little much better. Second, I think that, as I said before, that in spite of all the shortcomings and all the problems that the economic integration and trade are facing, of course, this is not a good moment in terms of, in political terms for free trade ideas, even though some agreements, some very important agreements have been signed, the FTAA is bogged down, and we have a problem. And in spite of that, I would say that the Latin American economies are more integrated to the world than they were before. We have to do more. We have to go further, but things are doing well. But the third big pillar of development, more than the third basic pillar to start going, is probably governance. Sorry, I have to mention our country in this, but people usually say, except Chile. Except Chile. What's so different about Chile? I mean, the quality of education is not much better in Chile than it's in other countries of South America. And probably legally, they have a lot of institutions that on paper exist, which are similar to, I mean, the central bank in Chile is organized in a similar way to other countries that have very good laws. But in fact, the system works. And it works basically because it's as a success of politics, of democratic politics and of consensus, of agreements, of institutions that really function, not only in paper, but in fact. And I think that that's a big minus today, still in Latin America. The quality of government, the quality of public policies is many times lacking in several countries which do have the resources. Something that I always like to say, I mean, that in Latin America, there's a basic truth that's never understood, that is that politicians or public officials were created to improve the condition, to solve problems for the people. And it's usually Latin American politics is not solving the problems of people, but all the contrary, is creating further problems. And I can give you a few examples if you want me to do.
And what should the OAS nowadays do?
I think we are very good in matters of human rights. We were good when there were dictators, and we're still very good in that area. I mean, our Commission on Human Rights is a very relevant institution. Our Court of Human Rights is also a very important institution. We have I think that we are good in electoral politics. We observe most of the elections in Latin America, and our stamp of is a guarantee for that an election is being well run. We have a drugs problem, which is a drugs program which is important too. But what we have to do, what we are trying to do now, is basically one, something very simple, to control the crisis. When I took office, the government of Ecuador had just fallen. The government of Bolivia fell 6 days after I took charge, and I had to run to Nicaragua to make sure that the crisis wouldn't slow the government down. We haven't had any more of those. I would say that we have worked well. We have worked well in Haiti, in Nicaragua, in Ecuador, in Colombia, in the problem of the disarmament of the paramilitary and all that. And then we have to focus on matters of governance. We hope to have in place very soon programs. We have already a very big and ambitious program on corruption going on. We hope to have also something that we call state modernization, that has to do basically with improving the quality in which public policies are formulated and developed. I think we have to work in that in Latin America Because in many cases, these new governments that arise, I mean, are not negatively oriented, but they don't have really the capacities, the abilities to make the modern state work. And fortunately, the big discussion on market or state, which was so important in Latin America 15 years ago, seems to have dissolved. President Bush actually spoke about the role of the state in the Mar del Plata conference a few months ago. So I assume that everybody agrees that public policies have a lot to do in that, and we have to concentrate on that. We have to concentrate on that. And I hope, of course, as this is a part that Luis Alberto Moreno is working on, that we can create a more stable framework for investment in areas which are so lacking in Latin America, such as infrastructure, for example, in which he has a big and very ambitious program.
Do you have the institutional support that you need from the countries, the commitment from the countries to do everything that you want to do in the OAS? And if so, how? If not, how do we get this commitment?
Well, I think that the problem of we have our institutional support. Yes, I mean everybody says that is willing to help, but then the policies have to be developed by the government. I do not believe in I think that international organization helps, and international organizations promote, and international organization coordinates and creates networks and all that. But then you have to have good governments. I mean that's what's at stake this year in Latin America. We have 20 presidential governments in Latin America. The rest are parliamentary, in the Caribbean, in Canada, and others. 21 with the U.S., excuse me. And 13 of those are being elected this year. So that's the crucial. I admit that there has to be uncertainty, because when so many governments are being elected democratically, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty. Democracy is, by definition, democratic elections should be uncertain. But I do hope that the quality of those, that the capacity of those new governments elected and what we can do about it can improve the condition of the people. Because economic growth, and we are having economic growth, brings about larger demands. I mean, you can understand, when people ask me, but why hasn't the condition of the people improved in the last 20 years? Well, because in real terms, per capita income has increased 11% in the past 15 or 20 years. That's about 1/10 or less than 1/10 of what China grew. It's even about 1/6 of what the U.S. grew in. So there was the condition did not improve because there was no growth to improve. We're having a growth now. So now is the moment to improve the quality of the people, but that depends very much on the basis, as I mentioned, macroeconomic policies, economic opening, and especially governance, good governance. And that's the big question for me.